Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to AM and
Hey
PM.
y'all,
This is Melina,
this is Arielle.
and today I am super excited because my years and years of insistence have finally paid off, and I finally got
Yes,
Ariel to read the Folk of the Air series, which begins with The Cruel Prince. It's by Holly Black, and today we're going to talk about it. And I feel like it's very
yes.
timely because she just released The Stolen Heir, which is like a duology that's a spin-off of the series. So it's
Hmm.
good. It's a good, I think it's always a good time, but I feel like it's very timely right now.
Yeah,
So let's just get right into it. So we want to
let's
just
do
start
it.
with a spoiler-free kind of section for those of you who may not have read it or have started but haven't finished it, just to kind of talk about like our general thoughts and the things that we think might draw you in. So I guess like what
Mm.
were your like overall spoiler-free like thoughts and reactions that you would want somebody
Just
to know?
over all of the whole series.
Yes.
Okay. I would say there are a lot of plot twists.
Mm-hmm.
You, from jump, you are like, whoa, okay, what's going on? Why? Okay, this is how we're going. This is how we're starting. Okay, okay. Like it's not, I would say it's not like your average. I mean, I don't read a lot of fantasy, so like I guess I couldn't say it's not your average fantasy book, but to me, as someone who doesn't really read fantasy like that, I was not expecting that. I was expecting just like a really smooth introduction of characters and like the getting to the idea of what the plot might be, but like within like 2 or 3 pages, we're jumping right in, babes.
Mm-hmm.
Jumping, diving, okay?
Mm-hmm.
No swimming vest, nothing. You're
No.
just right in there. Um, so yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy from like basically beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
Like you think you're like, oh, okay, we've reached a point where like things are settling. People are getting into their, plot lines. And then she'll just throw in a wrench or just throw in like a cool twist here. And you're like, okay, I need to adjust now. I need to pull myself together because what? I think that you do get attached to a lot of characters, certain characters. I would talk to Melina about and be like, if this person gets hurt, I'm going to stop reading. And I would genuinely, I was being dead serious.
And I
Like,
understand.
I was like, if something happens to this character, I'm going to stop reading right now. And so, like, it's really that deep. Like, she
Mhm.
writes her characters really well so that you pretty much like are rooting for them like the whole time. Not all of them. There are some characters we don't care for.
We will get into that.
Um, yeah, but otherwise, it's like, yeah, she writes really well. She can write chemistry very well. Like, there's romance and like slow burn and like drama and just like it's just really good. It's just a really good series. I was genuinely surprised. Not because I thought it wasn't going to be good, but I was just like there was just not what I was expecting out of a fantasy book.
Yeah.
Um yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that I took a chance and I listened to it or read it. I listened to you and read it.
Right. I am glad too, because I just think it's such a it's such a good, well-written series. Because sometimes you read a book and you're like, this isn't written that well, but it's just the drama of it is keeping me moving.
Mhm.
I want to know
Mhm.
what happens next because it's kind of like
Yeah.
trashy drama. But this wasn't like that. It felt like there were lots of things that were connected like throughout the entire series. It wasn't like she
Yeah.
finished one and then figured out what she was going to do with the second. Like it was
Mhm.
all related. And I really do like the like fantasy plot aspect of it because I really would consider the romance like a subplot that then kind of blossoms into a major plot. And
Yeah.
it's not always easy. Sometimes I've read fantasy books that like the most interesting thing was the relationships between people and everything else was boring and confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this, you're genuinely like, what's about to happen? Like between these warring
Mhm.
kingdoms, or like in this meeting, like
Mhm.
you can feel the tension. And even with what you said, like she really builds out her characters really well, which is hard to do because it's most of it is told in the first person
Yeah.
perspective. And so it's hard sometimes when that happens to be able to build other characters in a way that like you actually really care about because you're in one
Mhm.
character's head.
Yeah.
But it's just I've reread it like 3 times. I've read the side books. I just finished the the newest book, and I can talk about that a little bit at the end. I know you haven't read it, but we can just, quickly talk about my
Yeah.
thoughts about that. So yes, I would definitely, if you're looking for like a series that you pick up and you're like, I must know what happens next, I feel like this is the one. This is the book that would have
Yes.
me up at like 1 in the morning, like, oh, I really should go to bed. Like, I should not
Yeah,
watch the
definitely
newscaster.
had moments like that. Like I was literally reading on FaceTime with Melina and I would just be like, Melina, I have to go to bed. Like I have to go to sleep. It's 12:30. Like I have to go to sleep. What am I going to do? And she would just look at me and I'm like, you need to tell me what I need to do because if I don't go to sleep, I'm going to finish this book.
Right.
So,
Which is good. It's not, and like I said, it's not always easy to come by books like that. Sometimes you have books that you're just like suffering through. So it's good to
yeah.
pick up a book that you're like, oh my God, I need to. I felt that way about the Caraval series that I told you I really liked as
Mm.
well, where you're just kind of like, I must know what happens next. Like it feels like your life depends on it. Um, so yeah, so I guess we would both say read it. And
Yes.
now we will talk about what happens in the book. So if you don't want to know, now's your chance to skedaddle. I'm going to
Mhm.
read the synopsis of book one. Oops, this is book three. Let me not start there. That would be chaotic. Of course, I want to be like them. They're beautiful as blades forged in some divine fire. They will live forever. And Cardan is even more beautiful than the rest. I hate him more than all the others. I hate him so much that sometimes when I look at him, I can hardly breathe. Jude was 7 when her parents were murdered, and she and her two sisters were stolen away to live in the treacherous High Court of Fairy. 10 years later, Jude wants nothing more than to belong there, despite her mortality. But many of the Fae despise humans, especially Prince Cardan, the youngest and wickedest son of the High King. To win a place at the court, she must defy him and face the consequences. As Jude becomes more deeply embroiled in palace intrigues and deceptions, she discovers her own capacity for trickery and bloodshed. But as betrayal threatens to drown the courts of Fairy in violence, Jude will need to risk her life in a dangerous alliance to save her sisters and Fairy itself. So let's let's just start at the beginning because the
Yeah,
prologue
let's do it.
is
Yep.
I literally I will just say I picked up the book. I never read the back. I just thought it was pretty. That's how I know you're not
Hmm.
supposed to judge books by their cover, but I judge all fantasy books by their cover. I picked it up. I was like, "Ooh, cruelty, princes, I'm in." And I picked it up, and in chapter one, her parents were murdered, and I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" Not even chapter one,
Hmm.
the prologue. This
The
is the
prologue.
beginning of the book,
Yeah. This is
and
literally from jump.
I was like, first of all, who are these people? Like, I haven't even,
Don't barely know your names, okay? Who is
so,
this mysterious man who
right,
just arrived at the front door?
right. So, thoughts. How did you feel like starting just hot like that?
I'm trying to think how I remember reacting, but I would have to scroll back like very far in our text threads to find those. But I genuinely remember being like, wait, what? It's
Mhm.
like I was like, he just killed her dad. Like I was like, wait, he just killed her mom? Like he just killed everybody. What's happening? Like I genuinely was like, wait, what's gonna happen from here? And then he took them and then he was like, you're coming with me. And I was
Yeah.
like,
And then it
he
flashes
just
forward, and they've
he
like
just
been,
killed their parents.
yes,
And now we're kidnapping. What's going on?
yeah, it was a lot for sure. I think the thing I like about Holly Black is that she doesn't pull punches. Like,
Mm-mm,
she
not at
doesn't,
all.
that, what's it called? It's like a trope. It's called like Deus Ex Machina or something like that. Is that it? Where it's like
Mm,
the at the last minute, like somebody comes in to say they do this a lot in action movies where it's
mm-hmm.
like someone's like at a knife point and then all of a sudden someone like, swings in
Comes
and
in
kills
and
the
saves
person.
them. Mm-hmm.
Holly Black does not do
Does
that.
do
You think
that.
like someone surely is going to stop this, and then you're like, whoa.
Nope. No, she don't care.
You're like, wow, now they're dead. Okay, that
Yeah.
happens multiple times throughout the series.
Yes. You're like, oh, this is really happening. Because, like, of course, we're hearing it from Jude's perspective. So it's like
Hmm.
she's witnessing this happening. And you're like, holy crap, this is actually happening. Like,
Yeah.
no one's doing anything. this literally is just happening. That's like the only way I can describe it. It's like you can't do anything else but watch.
Yeah. And then we flash forward in the next chapter, and
Mm-hmm.
Jude, her twin sister Taryn, and her older sister Vivi are all living in Maddox's house. We find out Maddox
Mm-hmm.
is Vivi's biological father. Jude and Taryn's
Yep.
mother was her mother and like faked her own death to get away from him
Yeah.
basically
Mm-hmm.
and married the twins' dad. So now
Yep.
the three of them are living with Maddox, who
Mm-hmm.
is their father slash stepfather. I guess it's very confusing. His
Yeah, I
wife,
guess he would be their stepdad in a way.
I
Yeah.
guess, I don't know. His wife, Oriana, and
Mm-hmm.
their son, Oak, whom we love, a little cute little
Precious
goat
little
boy.
angel baby.
So, what are your thoughts on the girls, I guess specifically Jude's relationship with Maddox and Maddox as a person, because it's very complex. Like at the beginning, they're very afraid of him, but at this point, they've had to learn to like tolerate him and respect him. And I wouldn't say so go so far as to say that they love him, but they have like a fear and respect of him
Yeah.
mixed in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think of that
Mm-hmm.
relationship?
I think it makes sense considering how they came to know him.
Hmm.
I was telling you this when I was like reading, like I feel like a lot of most of both of Jude and Taryn's responses to mostly everything in the book, but like even when it comes to Matic, um, are like they're like the personification of fight or flight.
Hmm.
Like Taryn is very just like gentle. She just abides by everything. She doesn't fight anyone. She goes with whatever everyone is saying or doing. Um, and Jude is very much the opposite. Like she's just like, no, I'm gonna fight you. Or I feel like Jude was just always trying to prove herself to be worthy
Yeah,
of his respect. Um, even though she didn't have to, because like she was a human, there wasn't really anything she could do about that.
right.
So like I think even though Matic is a very awful person, I think a part of him did respect her. He just never really said it to her. And I think that's why it always drove her to always try to prove herself to him.
Yeah,
I thought it was interesting because I was just like, I mean, it gave a little bit of Stockholm syndrome
for
because I
sure.
was just kind of like, well, this guy like murdered your parents. If I was living in a home with someone who murdered my parents, I don't know if I would want to even try to build a relationship with them. I'm very much a person. I'm like, once you hurt me, I detach. Like, I don't want anything to do with you. So like, even if I had to live in your house, like, don't expect anything
Well,
from me.
that's Vivi's like whole
Yeah,
thing
and that's
throughout
her
the
whole thing.
entire
She's
series.
literally like, I hate you and I don't want to be here and I'd rather be somewhere else. Um, and so like, yeah, I'd probably be the VV in that situation. But Jude, yeah, and I don't know, maybe it's like maybe from like a psychological standpoint, it's like she didn't get to have parents that like formed her identity. So like
Mhm.
the only person that really could form her identity was a monster. And so that was the only person she really had to try to have some sort of identity formation
Mhm.
um in her life. Um but yeah, it's just like yeah, she was just that how I can just like summarize it. She's just always trying to prove herself worthy of Maddox's respect. Just
Mhm.
at any specifically when it came to like trying to be like a knight and like
Yes.
fighting and sword fighting and the battle stuff that he has her do. Um, I think he liked that aspect of her. But like, yeah, I think but besides that, that was all it really was. Because when we get later in the series, like Maddox really values people who just like do whatever he says,
Hmm.
essentially. Um,
He's a
he
huge
likes
narcissist, I think.
yeah, like he just wants obedience. So
Mhm.
it's like unfortunately Jude wouldn't is never gonna get his respect because he just wants her to obey him. So but yeah, that's how I would kind of describe their relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very interesting because you would think like, especially after reading the first, like, oh, surely they're going to try to escape or kill him, but then you flash forward and
Mm-hmm.
it's like they've developed an attachment to him and it's
Yeah.
and you almost can't blame them because it's very adaptive. Like
And they were kids.
they were kids.
So it's not like they were in high school. It's like they were kids. So like despite the trauma that they experienced, they had to form some sort of attachment. That's just how kids are.
Right. And also, like, Elfhame is dangerous and the Fae hate humans. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, Madoc protects them. People don't mess with them because they're Madoc's kids. So it's like,
Yeah.
you've brought me to this dangerous place, but you're also protecting me in this dangerous place. So
Mm-hmm.
there's like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of layers. It's very
Yes. Yeah.
convoluted. And I want to get into the Prince Dane stuff, but before we talk about that, I want to talk about like just school and
Mm-hmm.
like the whole little gang of like Cardan, Nicasia, Valerian, and
Valerian,
Locke,
Locke. Mm-hmm.
and her and Taryn. Like, I don't know, what are your? I know that's like a big question, but just like, what were your thoughts like the first time you met like that? You might not remember, but like thoughts on that group when we meet them.
That group, sadists for sure.
Absolutely.
Like they just got off on torturing people. There was absolutely no reason why they did the things that they did.
Hmm.
Like there's no reason why Carter tried to drown Jude. Like you
Well,
didn't have to do
remember
that.
I told you
I
it was
know
explained.
we learned why, but I'm talking about first book
Yes. Yeah.
Carden right now, where I'm just like, you just tried to murder her.
Right.
Why would you do that?
Just for fun.
Um, yeah, like they just did stuff that I was just like, this is so unnecessary. Like she's not even doing anything. That's the other thing too. Like she would just be minding her business and like Carden or whoever would come over and kick her ink pot over like while she's writing. And it's like, why?
Hmm.
Like literally leave me alone.
Hmm.
But it's funny because a part of Jude like wants to be a part of like them, which I think is just very high school. Just very I don't think that's abnormal. I think it's a normal for, wanting to be part of your bullies, but I understand wanting to be like accepted because that's her whole thing, like wanting to be accepted by the Fae and like basically just being respected just as a person. Um, but yeah, like Valerian, psychopath.
Absolutely.
Uh
The devil, like incarnate.
Nicatia, not very much psychopath, but probably more sociopath. Locke, sociopath. Cardan, book one. I wouldn't pathologize him, but he has problems.
For sure. He has major
Definitely
problems,
has some big issues
which we
there
will get
that he needs
into
to unpack.
later down the road. Yes. Yeah, I felt really bad for them too because I was like, wow, you literally, your parents were killed, you got brought to this place, and now these people are bullying you for something you cannot control.
You
And
can't even
similarly,
control.
I was trying to understand like what is the issue. I mean, there's like a point where I think Jude puts salt in their food and then I don't know if it's after that that he tries to drown her or if it's after that that he like they make her eat the apple or something. But at that point
Yeah,
they've been like harassing her for super long.
that she just was
Um
like, I'm over it.
yeah, and it's interesting because like Taryn like greatly disapproves of Jude fighting back, even though they're like
Yeah,
harassing both of them. And Taryn's like, we should just sit back and take it. And Jude's like, we should not. We should actually fight.
yeah. Like I said, fight or flight. She's very
Hmm.
much flight. Like she just, or like I guess you could say she fawns if you want to go into the other aspects of trauma responses. She just gives in. She's just like, fine,
Yeah.
whatever.
And neither of those are like particularly wrong, which is interesting.
Right.
Like, I mean, we'll get into Taryn later, but at the outset,
Yes. Yeah.
immediately like fighting back versus just being like, I'm just trying to get through this. Neither of those are
Hmm.
like necessarily wrong, which is an interesting dynamic, I guess. And then like thoughts on like the budding relationship with Locke, because Locke starts getting like flirty with
Right.
her.
So Locke starts flirting with Jude, and I'm like, at first I was like, oh,
Hmm.
because he was a little smooth. I'm not gonna lie, he was a little smooth.
He was.
And he
He had the
was,
moves.
saying the right things. He was giving her attention. But okay, that was the difference. I said he was a sociopath, but I'm sorry, this is the spoiler version, so it's fine.
Right.
But like later we find out that he's a sociopath. At first, out of the whole group, Locke wasn't like bullying her. He was just like always on the outside, like kind of watching. And then like he would like try to be friends with her. Like outside of their group. So
Yeah.
I was just like, Locke's cool people. We like him. Locke's cool. I like him a lot. And then yeah, and so then like, they start like flirting, and then he kisses her and he starts like making out with her like random places and stuff, and he's just like, he's showing that he's like interested in her, um and all of that, which I was like, okay, all right, we like Locke. He's not awful. I mean, he hangs out with some really awful people,
Yeah,
but
he does.
he's not awful. um
Was that like suspicious to you that his friends were so awful, but he was like supposedly so nice?
no,
Mm,
because I've seen that before where, there's people that are in groups where it's like, why are you even friends with them? It's there.
mm,
I think that's
yeah,
like a common thing on like TV and like movies where it's like, there's a group of people that are awful, but there's always the one that has kind of a sort of like moral compass.
yeah.
And then like the main character will be like, why are you even friends with those a-holes? And they're just like, I've known them since like kindergarten, like that
Mhm.
thing. So I wasn't really suspicious of Locke. Like I was just kind of like, oh, he's probably just the nice guy in the group. Like he probably just tries to make sure that the people they bully are okay.
Mhm.
So that was my initial feeling about Locke. And
Right.
that quickly changed
Right. Quickly.
later in the book.
And it's interesting because around this time, one of the things that Cardan does to annoy Jude is he tells her like essentially like someone is sleeping with your sister. And we know that it's
Hmm.
true because they
Yeah.
can lie. And so she's like,
Yeah.
who? But Taryn won't tell her. And so we're like, is she sleeping with Cardan? Is it
Yeah, like I was like,
Olivia?
is it
Like
him? Like,
exactly
because I was like, why wouldn't it be him? Of course, it could be him.
right.
He's always bothering her. He's just like trying to make her upset. Like, yeah, why wouldn't he want to torture her that way? Yeah, sleep with her sister. That'd be the ultimate form of
Yes.
torture.
And there's also a scene where she's like, "Do you think that Locke, like, I'm not good enough for Locke?" And then Cardan's like, "No, I think you two are perfect for each other." And it's like in the context of everything else that you then
Hmm.
like the truth of that is like
Yes.
amazing. I love that aspect so much. In A Court of Thorns and Roses, that's not a thing. They can lie. Um,
Hmm.
which I was like lame because I think it's so interesting. I've been like thinking about that. Like how would I if I was trying to like not answer a question without
Hmm.
lying, like how would I go about it? Because it's like
Right.
they're forced to talk in like these roundabout ways.
It's like
Or
a
even,
double meaning.
yes, or even like their
Hmm.
prophecies. It's like it sounds like this, but it could also be this, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
very literal, and sometimes it's very figurative.
Hmm.
So it's just like a really, I don't know, grammatically, syntactically interesting
Yes. Good
concept.
job, Holly.
Yes, amazing job. So now let's get into the Prince Dane of it all, because Cardan has like a billion siblings. He has two brothers
Yes.
and three sisters.
Okay.
And
I thought he had two sisters for some reason, but
no, he had
you're
it's just
right.
because
He's
they
got
never
three.
like really appear. It's
Yeah.
Evelyn,
The only one I
Celia, and
remember is
Rhea.
Elwyn.
Yeah, because she's the oldest one. And I think the one that's friends with Vivi is Rhea, however you pronounce her
Mm-hmm.
name, or
Mm-hmm.
Raya. And then there's
Yeah.
one named Celia, but she never appears and quickly
Yeah.
dies, as we will get into later in the book. So,
Woo!
so we have Prince Dane who shows up to, I think, because they're like, they the scene where Cardan says all that to her about Taryn is like at one of those trainings, and Prince Dane is there.
Yeah, because she's like trying to be a knight. So
Yeah,
she's like competing and doing all the tournaments and stuff. So she's like
right,
prepping for like the tournament.
right. So he shows up to the house and he's like, "I want you to be a spy for me." And Jude's like, "What?" Like, I just
Like, why?
yeah. So I guess like, what were your initial thoughts about Prince Dane?
I didn't really understand his deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just like, okay, you want me to spy for you? Why?
Because she
But
can
then
lie.
but he's right, because she can lie. But he also says, like, doesn't he say like he believes someone's trying to like ruin his coronation or something? Because
I think so.
he's gonna become like the next king.
Right.
And so he's like trying to figure out like someone's trying to ruin my coronation and I need you to be a spy for me.
Hmm.
Because like you said, like she can lie, so she can just like trick people.
Yeah.
Um, but I was just like what? Like literally, but okay, so what? Like
Hmm.
why do you want me? Like, and again, I get it. She can lie. So sure. But
Mhm.
at Prince Dane's whole deal, I was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, the whole time I was
Like,
kind of wondering, like, what is the, like, romantic endgame of the story? Like, at first I was like, "Is it Locke?" And then for the first, like, 60% of the book, I was like, "There's no way it's Cardan, he's evil." And then I was
yeah.
like, "Is it Dane?" Like, I
Right.
because Oriana seemed to think that there was, like, something going on between them. She thought
Mhm.
when they were, like, locked
Mhm.
away in the study that they were, like, doing stuff, and she was
Yeah.
like, "No, that's a bad idea," which immediately makes you be like, "Why would you say that?"
Right. Like, why are you being suspicious?
That's suspicious. Yeah. So he has her go to Hollow Hall, which is where Cardan lives with his brother Balkin. Um,
Bilkin.
and when she's there, she sees a lot of very interesting things, including people legitimately enslaved by magic.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then
Very unsettling.
yes, yeah, I think Holly does a good job of like writing disturbing things sometimes
Yes.
too. Because that, I don't know, just this idea that like somebody could like override your autonomy and force you to do
Mm-hmm.
things that you didn't want to do is like very disturbing.
Or
Um,
mess with your psyche. Like,
yes,
think that you're doing something that you're actually not doing.
right. You think you're eating like steak and you're eating leaves. That's basically like what they were doing
Yeah.
to them.
Mm-hmm.
So she tries to free a person, but then when she's there, two interesting things that she sees. One, she finds a paper with her name written
Yes.
all over it, Jude, 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 in Carden's handwriting. So she's like, what in God's name is
Right. She's literally like, wow, he hates me so much that he
this?
wrote my name down. And I was like, you're being dumb.
Can we just that and this even this line, I hate him so much that sometimes when I look at him I can hardly breathe.
That's not how you feel when you
She makes
hate
me
someone,
sick the
babes.
entire
That's
series.
not how you feel when you hate someone. I'm sorry.
The second thing she sees that's interesting is Belkin beating Cardan, which we
Yes.
get the sense that this is something that happens very
But
often.
not even Bilkin himself, though, isn't it through a human servant?
I think
He
so.
like
You're
basically
right.
compels him to do it.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? Did that alter at all your perception of Cardan? Were you still like, no, I don't care?
I think I was kind of like, okay, I see what Holly's trying to do. I see she's trying to get me to empathize with him a little bit, but I'm
Mhm.
still like, he's still a jerk though. So, but I was like, but that's still awful. Like for him to experience, like, whether you're a superhuman, a supernatural being, a human, that should never, ever be a thing.
Mhm.
And Bilkin was absolutely a psychopath and
Absolutely.
sadist. Yeah.
Absolutely. This is something I said to you too, but like whenever I read that book, I wonder like at the title, The Cruel Prince, like I wonder who that really
It's
is about
actually, yeah,
because
right.
we think it's Cardan when we meet him,
Mhm.
but like the more we find out, the more you're kind of like it actually really could be it's a toss up between Dane and Balkan because they're both awful people. They're horrible human beings.
Insane.
Yes. Well,
Like,
beings, Fae. They're
yeah,
horrible Fae.
yeah. Like when we get to the point where Dane basically is like, okay, now that you've proved to me that you're a good spy, because this is like after this, I think. And he's just like, now that you prove that you're a good spy, I'm gonna put a spell on you so that you're not affected by fairy magic. And she's like,
Mhm.
cool. And he's like, but first, I want you to stab yourself in your palm. And she's like, what?
Well, that was also partially punishment because Valerian had attacked her and she
That's
had like
true. And she,
she no, she hadn't killed him at that point. He was
oh,
trying to throw he tried to compel her to throw herself off the
right
tower.
off the tower. Yes.
But it didn't because Dane had put the it's called like a geas or something on
Yeah.
her so
Mm-hmm.
that it wouldn't work. And then he was pissed because he thought or I think and then I think she did kill him because he snuck into her room and then
Mm-hmm.
she killed him, which I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, he is
Yeah.
dead. Like
Did not
dead,
see that
dead.
coming.
No.
Yep.
I thought she was
Body
gonna tie
cold.
him up.
No pulse.
No
Nope.
regrets at all. And she thinks Dane is coming to like kill her or something because he knows that she killed Valerian,
Mm-hmm.
but he all he knows is that she didn't react when he tried to use his magic on her.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. So he was annoyed that she didn't try to jump off the tower because
which
wasn't it like that? Because it was
yeah,
like because then it would prove like, oh, you're somehow under, but how are they even connect that it's from him? Either way, his logic didn't make sense.
I'm like,
And
she
so he
could have
basically was
died.
like, hey, I want you to stab yourself in the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, what? And I was like, what? And then she did it. And I was like, oh,
And the worst,
okay.
most torturous part about that to me is that he didn't even like compel her to do it. He was like, he compelled her so that she could like feel all the like muscles and nerves in her hands so she could know exactly where to stab through for the cleanest cut, like to not
Mm-hmm.
leave damage. And then he uncompelled her and was like, you do it now on your own free will. And I was like, this man is insane. Like, that is what's going on right now. This man is crazy. This is
Like,
very sadistic.
no, absolutely. Because he's just watching her with like a
Yeah.
smile on his face.
Yep.
And then she has to go about her business with her hand wrapped and can't say anything about it. She hides a lot of her injuries in this book series.
She does.
Like she has so many injuries, and I'm like, what do you mean? She's just limping around. Everyone's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, but you have you got stabbed in the thigh. Like
Right.
you saw your bone at one point. Like what's going like you're just okay.
Too. She's like
Okay.
sewing herself
Okay.
up in the bathtub. I'm like, this, you have more willpower than me. Really. So, two other interesting things about the Prince Dane thing. One is that she's like learning how to microdose on poison, which becomes relevant later.
Yes. Oh my God. I remember I was like, wait, is she microdosing? It's like
Mhm.
she's literally training herself to consume poison so that she's immune to it.
Which you know is
That's
going to come in handy later because
right.
they would never
Yeah.
do something for it to not
Right. Of
do anything.
course.
Like
And
I
I
was
thought I
watching,
was like, sure, it makes sense because she's a spy. Sure. Like you never know. It could happen.
yeah.
So
And then we also meet, what are they called? The circle, the court of shadows. Is
yeah,
that what
the
they're
Court of
called?
Shadows. Mm-hmm.
We meet the roach, the bomb, the ghost. Thoughts on
Mm-hmm.
those three?
Epic team.
I love them.
Mm-hmm.
So much
Yes.
better than Dane.
Yes. Yeah.
That's all. That's
They,
all I have to
yeah,
say.
I like them. I was like, yeah. At first, I was like, I was hesitant because I was like, these people could be awful and like they could hurt her or whatever. But they turned out to be great.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the
well,
ghost does teach her to
some of
kill.
them turned out to be great.
They all turned out to be great, but just with
Okay, fine, fine.
some,
In the end, someone
yes,
redeems themselves.
yes. But I mean, like I said, he did teach her to kill, so I guess questionable, you know.
But again, if you're a spy, it's gonna happen. You're gonna have to kill somebody. So
Exactly. So, okay, let's talk now about the coronation. Because at this point in the book, I thought I knew kind of where this book was going. I was like, this is going to be like a spy book, and then maybe she'll like trick Cardan somehow because he keeps coming
mm,
up. So, like, you know, maybe Locke will help her. I don't know what I was thinking. So, we get to the coronation. A couple of different things happen. Number one, we find out that Locke is the person that Taryn
yes.
is with.
Yes.
And he had told her, if you really love me, you will let me make your sister fall in love with me, and you'll be able to withstand watching me love your sister, and then we'll get married. This is a test because you have to be able to survive in the Fae world. And we find out that he's been playing her this whole time, and Taryn knew and allowed it. Thoughts on that?
That I was like, I don't know if I could have kept myself as composed as Jude did. Because if my sister had ever done something like that to me, it would have been a wrap. It would have been there's nothing that you could say to me that I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, sure, I forgive you. That's totally fine. And that's
Mhm.
normal. I get that. No, you knew this whole time and you didn't say anything to me
Right. Trash. Leave
because
it there.
this man promised to marry you. Are you joking?
Hmm.
No, it would have been a wrap. I was like, yeah, she's done. That was the moment I was like, yeah, Taryn, garbage can.
Yes.
Done. dumpster.
Yeah, because
Just
it's like, where's the loyalty? Your desire to belong is so strong that you would betray your own sister, your own twin
yep.
sister who looks just like you,
Hmm.
into doing something that you know would hurt her in the end. I was like,
Yep.
Karen, it's absolutely on site every time I see you now.
Every
Like,
time. I was
every
like, I don't
time.
even want to see her name anymore. Like, I don't want her character in my eyeballs anymore. I don't care. I don't care.
Right. So that happens. Well, do you have any more thoughts on that? Because that's not
Oh,
even.
also that Locke is a sociopath. That's
Yeah.
why I said he was a sociopath earlier. He is absolutely insane.
Yes. He's like, I feel like worse than Valerian because Valerian, you
Yeah.
you know right off the bat who he is.
Yeah.
He's
He
very
shows
violent.
himself.
He's
Yep.
very dumb too.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just like a big brute. That's kind of how I see him. Locke is like sinister. He's like
Yes.
insidiously evil and is
Mm-hmm.
malicious, which I feel like
Yep.
is so much worse.
Yes. Because he makes you think that he's a good guy, makes you build trust, and then would be the one to murder your entire family.
Literally.
So
Well, we'll talk about this later, but he literally tries to kill dude at one point. He's like, I'm tired of this. I'm just gonna kill her.
right. Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Mm,
that's right. So
but only okay, we'll get into it later. But yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So
that was a plot twist that I
it
was
was,
like,
but not even the biggest plot twist.
no, not even the one because
Not
not
even
too
that.
shortly after that,
Right.
babes.
Because we have Dane and he's about to be crowned. For some reason he's
Mm-hmm.
naked and they're painting him. And
Yep.
his mother is there, I think.
I
I don't
think
know his
so.
name. Does he have a mother?
The whole royal family is pretty much
The
there.
whole royal family's there.
Yeah.
King Eldred is there. He is like getting painted. They're about to put the crown on his head, and they have this thing where like someone of the royal family has to put the crown on the other person's head.
Mm-hmm.
Like the passing has to be like that, which is fine because Eldred is just going to pass it to him. But then he gets killed by Maddox
You're right.
while the crown is in transition because it can't be anyone in the royal
Wait,
family.
but doesn't Bilkin step in first?
Yes, no,
Because
I think. Go ahead.
because I thought Bilkin was basically like, oh, you're right. You're right. Because I was like, I thought Bilkin was like, you need to crown me or I'm gonna kill you. And then his dad's like, yeah, I'm never gonna give you the crown.
Yes, that happens after
But
because
that's
the
after.
the rule is like you can't nobody in the royal family can kill anybody else for the crown or else they would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know if it's like they die or something happens where they get cursed, but they can't. So it couldn't be
Yeah.
Belkin. And it was also like Eldred had kind of like renounced the power of the crown and had not yet given it to Dane. So the crown
Right.
was in this like transitional space
Mm-hmm.
when um Matic killed Dane. So all of a sudden you're like, whoa, okay, there goes the complete plot because I thought we
Yep.
were going to be following Dane for the next couple of
Mm-hmm.
books.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Baelkin steps up and is like, make me king. And Eldred is like, over my dead body. And then Baelkin's like, bet, and kills him.
Kills
And
him.
he
And
tries
then
to get,
proceeds to go down the line of his siblings and is like, you crown me. And his sisters are like, and so he's like, all right, and just slays them all.
yeah, I think one of them kills themselves before he
Yes,
gets
you're right.
to
Mm-hmm.
them. I think he kills Eowyn next because I think it was like Dane, Baelkin, and Eowyn had like a rivalry. They each had their own like cliques basically
Mm-hmm.
that ran
Mm-hmm.
around. So yeah, so you're like, wow, the entire royal family is down. Cardan is nowhere to be found. We have no idea where he is.
Yeah, we have no idea. But
And then
basically, a coup happens. It's like a
yes,
whole uprising right
right.
now.
And so then
Everyone's in chaos.
yes,
like,
yeah, because the entire royal family is dead. Nobody can crown Baelkin, and he's like, we need to find Cardan. So everybody's searching. The guards are like fighting with like the guards who are uprising and blah blah blah. Jude gets under a table where she finds Cardan drunk out of his mind. He was like
drunk as
asleep
a skunk. Yeah.
basically throughout the entire thing, and they escape together because they have to, which is a trope I love. So, do you feel like at what point, I guess, did you start to feel less like you hated Cardan and started to feel a little more like sympathy for him?
I would say probably after the coronation.
Hmm.
I would say after she pretty much like kidnapped him, but she like, helped him escape. And then, she had to lock him up because she fully didn't trust him, because she was like, what if you're also part of this?
Right.
But um I think once like she had him kind of like by himself and she got to really see who he really was. Um yeah, she got to really see like Cardan's like real personality and how he really acts. Because before it was just very much like, why do you do these things? Like,
Hmm.
I don't need to see you making out with some other girl and you're giving me direct eye contact.
Eyes wide
You're being
open.
weird. You're being weird.
So
Like,
weird.
um, so yeah. So yeah, like I think her having him like basically in the court of shadows and like keeping him prisoner essentially
Let's talk about
helped.
that, because that is one of my favorite scenes. She has him
Hmm.
tied up. I think it's not immediately when she brings him down, because she just ties him up and like kind of goes back and forth and is like, "This is where you
Hmm.
will stay because I don't trust. I need you, but I don't trust you."
Yeah.
Because he's like a bargaining tool for her, essentially. She's
Hmm.
trying to figure out what to do. And they are going back and forth. I think she brings up the fact that she found something with her name written all over it. And she's
Hmm.
like, "Why? I just want to understand why it is that you hate me." She has a knife pressed to his throat. And he says, "I hate you because I think of you often. It's disgusting and I can't stop." Reaction.
Just
Thoughts.
that was when I was like, oh, okay. Because Cardan really knows how to talk.
Mm,
Like he gives energy.
hmm.
So I was like, okay, okay. Like I was like, all right, Cardan.
Hmm.
Like his lines would literally make me laugh. Like
Yeah.
not because I thought they were like comical, but like nervous laughter, like when you think someone said something cute, you know what I mean?
Right. You don't
Like
know how
I
to
would
act.
yeah, genuinely those were my responses every time. Like, boy, if you
Right.
don't calm down. But yeah, it was great. It was great. I was like, I just remember being like, what?
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure I sent you a voicemail being like, so he's in love with her. Got it. Okay.
Right.
Which we figured from seeing the note, like, oh, he likes her. It's not that he
We
hates her.
figured.
Right.
That's
Us.
the
Yeah.
issue. That the entire book series, Jude is like, Cardan is doing these things because he hates me. And you're like, I what? Like, I don't
No,
understand
no.
how it's possible that that's how you interpreted this.
Especially with the note thing. Cause I remember being like, well, if he hated you, why would he leave it on his desk?
Right.
Like, why would he write your name and not like try to scratch your name out or like it's crumpled or like it's in the bin or something?
And
It's
there's like a
just
picture of you with
laid
like
out.
arrows in it or something, you know.
Right, right. Like, no, it's laid out on the table. Like
In
he
like
just wrote a
cursive,
love.
Jude, Jude, Jude. That's how I read it. Like like a like a heart.
Yeah,
Oh,
like he's
so good.
like that's literally what like middle school girls do with their crushes. Like, do you ever do that when you would write your first and
Yeah.
last name except the last name of your crush?
Mm-hmm.
And you just write it over and over again. That's literally what
100%.
Carden was doing. That's
Yes.
literally what he was doing.
Cardan was a middle school girl. Basically.
Right.
So, important piece of information that we learn at some point, I can't remember exactly when. So, we find out that, so important information to know about like most of the Greenbriar family is that many of them are hoeing out.
Yes.
Eldred is
Hmm.
one of them. He has like a billion consorts. We
Yep.
find out one of them was Oriana,
Oriana.
and another
Hmm.
one was Liriope, Locke's mom, who was
Hmm.
also having an affair with his son, Dane. Disgusting.
Hmm.
In that Oak is
Is
actually Liriope and Dane's child.
son.
Yeah, son. And
Hmm. So he's
Dane,
Locke's half brother.
Locke's half brother, and Dane poisoned Liriope.
R.I.P.
So she died,
Hmm.
and Oriana found her because Oriana was also a consort, so they were friends,
Hmm. Hmm.
and had to legit cut Oak out of her. And
Yep.
that's why Oak looked so sickly and why like everything happened so fast because it was the Jude recalls like Oriana just kind of coming and then there being a baby and they all loved Oak,
Hmm.
so nobody asked any questions.
Yeah. Right.
So now we know like, okay, we have another Greenbriar in the mix. What
Mm-hmm.
were your
And
thoughts
then
on all of
Jude
that?
starts using her brain. That was crazy. That was a crazy little plot twist too. Because I was like, what? I was like, so he's Locke's half brother. Unfortunate,
Right.
but also that's crazy that
Mhm.
Dane was like, well, I don't want to risk my crown being taken, so I'm going to kill this baby.
Yep.
So that's just further proves how insane he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was pretty crazy. And
Mhm.
what's funny is it's just like no one's actually like fully related to each other. Like besides Jude and Taryn, and they're half sisters with
Yeah.
Vivi. But like I was like, dang, like this is just a nice little potluck of people,
Right.
you
A
know?
tree that just keeps like doing this to each other. Like I'm so
No
confused.
branches, everyone's just
Yes. So that's interesting. And so then Jude and Cardan start to kind of form a tentative alliance because they have to, because nobody wants to work
Mhm.
with Balkan because he's evil and awful and
Yeah, he's
terrible.
crazy.
Because Cardan doesn't trust him because he abused him, and Jude doesn't trust him because she was working with Dane, and so there's not a
Yep.
mutual trust, and she was involved in the Court
Hmm.
of Shadows. And also, as I said, he is evil. So
Hmm.
that is reason enough to not want to work with him. So they start to hatch a plan for Cardan to crown Oak, I think is their plan, right?
Yes. And then she was gonna somehow get Maddox involved, so that way no, she would be like his essential or
I don't remember
whatever.
what the original plan was.
Yeah, I can't remember what the plan was. If it was like she was gonna have no, what it was that I think Maddox kind of had a similar plan, except his was more like I would be the voice of the king and not
Mm,
Oak. But I think she
yes.
wanted Oak. Okay, this is what she was gonna do. I think. Nope, I'm getting too far ahead. That's not what she was gonna do because she switched it up. But I
Mm,
think she was gonna crown Oak, and then I think she would try to make herself be the like spokesperson, or maybe Cardan would be. I can't remember.
yeah.
Something like that. Basically, baby Oak was about to be king, is
Yeah.
what the original plan was.
Right. But not actually because he was a child and so he couldn't rule.
Right.
So I think her fear was that he would like start listening to Madoc over her.
Hmm.
Because all three of them are in agreement. Balkan cannot be king.
Yeah.
Madoc, Cardan, Jude. But they have
Hmm.
different, ways of going about it. And another important thing is that she is like, Cardan, I don't really trust you. You have tried to kill me multiple times. So I want you to swear like obedience to me, basically.
Hmm.
So he
Hmm.
pledges himself to her for like a year or
Yeah.
something. So the way this book ends, after she's
Y'all.
dramatic because of the whole like microdosing thing, is that
Right. Because it was
she,
supposed to be Balkan's like coronation or something. He was trying to have like basically a raggedy version of his own coronation.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I think that's what
I
was
don't
happening.
I don't remember if he was trying to get Oak or if he was trying to get Cardan to crown him. Perhaps both. I don't really know
Maybe it was
happening.
Cardan
Maybe.
because he's the only one that could have done it.
Well, Oak could have, but I don't remember if at this point he knew that.
You're right.
So I'm getting like I get like little things mixed up.
Yeah, it's like because there's just so much that happens.
Yeah. All I know is what actually happened, which
Yes. Hmm.
she tells Cardan, do not move and don't speak, like for the next several minutes. And he, in the moments before this, he's like, we did it. We accomplished our plan. He's so proud. And then she's like, for the next full minute, don't say anything and don't move. And he's like, what? And then Oak puts the crown on his head, which is something Cardan has explicitly said multiple times. I
He
do
did
not want to
not
be High King
want.
because of trauma reasons.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then the book ends.
Yep. Well,
What?
no, because she goes and talks to him
Right,
after,
right.
and he's basically like, "I'm about to make your life a living hell for the
Yes,
next year,"
yes.
and then it ends,
And
and
then
we're like, "Oh,
I feel like we
okay."
can't have any nice thing. That's the thing. You can't get
Mm-mm.
attached to any nice moment because it will be ruined
Yes,
promptly.
immediately.
So yeah, that's the end of book one. How did
Mhm.
you feel when that was transpiring?
I'm pretty sure after like every book, I was just kind of like, like that was just my face, like, huh?
Mhm.
Like, not because of confusion, but mostly of like, did I really just read that? Like, I really just read all of that? That just actually happened. That's how you're gonna end the book? Bet.
Right.
Okay. And then I took a long time to get the second one, but I finally got the second one. So on
Yeah.
to the next.
Yes. And I am glad that you got both books at the same time, the second and third one, because the first one
Mhm.
ends annoyingly, but the second one ends so much more.
Oh my God. The second one,
It,
I'm gonna have to find the picture of
it ends so
me
much worse.
after the second one.
Yes. Oh, yes. I just I pulled okay, so I have the summary and then I also have like a plot because I mix up the two last books in my head sometimes and so much
Mhm.
happens in both of them that it's
So
like,
much.
okay. So, The Wicked King, this is the summary. The enchanting and bloodthirsty sequel to the New York Times bestselling novel The Cruel Prince. You must be strong enough to strike and strike and strike again without tiring. The first lesson is to make yourself strong. After the jaw-dropping revelation that Oak is the heir to Fairy, Jude must keep her brother safe. To do so, she has bound the wicked king, Cardan, to her and made herself the power behind the throne. Navigating the constantly shifting political alliances of Fairy would be difficult enough if Cardan were easy to control, but he does everything in his power to humiliate and undermine her, even as his fascination with her remains undiminished. Period. When it becomes
Mhm.
all too clear that someone close to Jude means to betray her, threatening her own life and the lives of everyone she loves, Jude must uncover the traitor and fight her own complicated feelings for Cardan to maintain control as a mortal in the fairy world. Any like
Mhm.
immediate thoughts about this book in particular?
Well, this is what my face looked like at the end of this one. So
That's
that was my original reaction. Um, Now that I have time to heal, I would say my initial thoughts of this one. It was a good, nice, slow burn book, I will say. We got a good moment where we were like, turn it all the way up. This song is amazing.
mhm,
And then the end just like punched you in the throat right after.
mhm,
So yeah, I like the second one. I typically do like the second books in like series, or I think we've talked about this before, like second films and in trilogies and stuff. So I really did like The Wicked King. I thought it was good to see how Cardan was as a king.
mhm,
Um, that like even though Jude pretty much spoke through him, he still had moments where he was just like, no, I can do this. Like I'm very much capable. Even though he didn't want to do it and he hated it, like there's still moments where he was like, no, I actually am pretty good at this king thing.
mhm.
Um,
And
so
moments where he was very dumb. So we see the learning curve for
yes,
sure.
yes, yeah. Um, Trying to think, was the traitor Locke in this book?
No, the traitor was the ghost.
Yes. Yep. You're
Yeah.
right. It was. I forgot so much happened in this book. You're right.
I have
Okay.
like I have
Yeah.
a plot summary on this thing called Super Summary and it like talks about the major plot points. I can just read through like the different plot points.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
helpful because
Because
it's
then I'm like, because I was like trying to think like, well, the third one, we know what happens because of the ending of the second book. But oh, we never talked about how Vivi left and went to the human world in the
oh right.
first one.
We'll talk about her. How do you feel
Yeah.
about her as an older sister?
Honestly, as an older sister, I'm kind of like, you could have done better.
Yeah,
Like,
I feel that.
just leaving your sisters and just being like, well, I don't want to deal with this, so I'm gonna leave. And it's like, I mean, sure, but like, I don't think I could leave my siblings just like, I don't know, just because like even when I think about when I like moved to North Carolina, I was very much like, I remember I hesitated so long to move because I was like, well, what's gonna happen to my siblings? Like, who's gonna take care of them?
Right.
But like I had to be like, they're gonna be fine, they're gonna be okay. And like, once I felt that peace about it, like I left. But like I felt like Vivi just didn't care. Like she was just kind of like, I'm out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna go be with my girlfriend. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't want to deal with this supernatural stuff no more. Bye.
Was so angsty the entire time. I agree.
Yeah.
There's definitely moments where she could have been more protective, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I guess in a way she's kind of doing the best that she can. I would guess that
Mm.
Vivi also feels a lot of guilt because even though it's not her fault, in a
Yeah,
way, if you trace it back to like the reasons why Maddox came to the house
is
and killed
because
her parents is
yeah.
because of her,
Mm-hmm.
because he wanted her. And so I
Yeah.
see how she would feel like guilt about that.
Mm-hmm. I can see that too.
Her and
That makes
Taryn are kind
sense.
of the same if you think about it. They just like escape.
Mm-hmm.
Vivi's just a little more rude, but her and Taryn are
Yes.
very similar.
But it's because she's a fae, so she's just like, I don't have to lie. I can just be as
Yeah.
honest as I want.
Yes. Okay.
She
So
does have good lines though. Her
this is
lines be
great
killing
line.
me sometimes.
All right, so here's the summary. Cardan, the High King of Fairy, acclimatizes, is that a word? Acclimates
Wow.
to his new role. He makes his friend Locke, who is engaged to Jude's sister Taryn, his master of revels.
Yes.
Jude, his
Mm-hmm.
professor, goes to see Cardan's brother Baelkin in prison, and they discuss his messages for Cardan, which Jude has intercepted. She later meets with her fellow spies in the Court of Shadows and interrogates one of the prison guards. At home, Jude meets with Taryn. That's a very interesting way to phrase it because she's literally like, Taryn, we're gonna fight now. Pull out
Literally, she said square up,
right now.
like pulled her sword out, like, let's go right now. Darren's like, no. And she's like, no, we're gonna fight. Like, I don't want to speak. I just want problems. I just want to fight you.
And this is the moment too where like their upbringing is hilarious because Maddox like, you hurt her, so she has every right to duel you.
All
I'm not 100%.
right. Maddox like, hey
Any other
man.
parent would be like, you are not about to fight with swords, but he's like, it's her honor. You have to fight. I
Yeah, that's them's the rules. He was
Yeah,
like, she pulled out her sword. Your only response is to pull out yours too. Sorry.
right. So Taryn has brought Jude some of her things from home, as if that's going to help at all, and
Mm-hmm,
invites Jude to
mm-hmm.
her wedding. Yay. So how do we feel about like the climate of the like the royal, I don't know, it's called like the dais or something, and we have like
Yeah.
who's like constantly drunk, his crown is like never fully straight on his head, and now we have Locke who's always there as the master of revels, which basically is
And like he's
part.
just like living it up. Like he's just enjoying himself and just like being a gross a-hole and just like trying to like say stuff to Jude. And I'm like, nobody wants you here. Like I kept being like, I want Locke to die. Like I don't want him in my eyeballs anymore. Like Taryn. I was like, I don't want to read his name. I don't care about him anymore. He can kick rocks. Like he can absolutely go die.
Yeah.
Um, and then, like, you know, even this book was showing me how toxic their Taryn and Locke's relationship was. I was like, she's in an abusive relationship.
Oh,
Like, I was like, this man literally gaslights her and is like, well, like, you have to do this because we're getting married. Like, she just does stuff that he tells her to do just because whatever. And I'm just like, girl, blink twice if you need help.
right.
Like, I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, I think it's just all chaos, which makes sense because, like we said before, he starts to actually act like a king. Like, Cardan is very much like, I didn't want this anyway. Like, so I'm just going to live my life the way I want to, as I was before. I'm just king. That's all that's changed.
Yeah.
Like, so let the debauchery continue, you know?
Hmm.
So, and Jude, of course, is a control freak, and she's just like, you need to pull it together. And he's just like, well, I'm not really in charge. So
Right. And she's
what
trying to like
exactly do I
command
actually have to
him to
do?
make sure that he doesn't like, she's like, also don't say this and don't say this and don't do that and don't talk to this person. But she like can't make it, she can't, he does this interesting thing where he'll like do stuff that he knows she's not gonna like in front of everybody else, but he knows she can't be like, stop doing that because then they'll know that she has power
Mm-hmm.
over him.
Mm-hmm.
He's very like sneaky, I think.
Yes.
So
Yes.
then the next morning, Jude meets with Cardan and learns he's been attacked. It's a very interesting plot point. She follows
Yes.
his former lover, Nicasia, who intended to kill the woman he was with, unhinged. Nicasia confesses that her mother Orla, the queen of the undersea, is planning to have Cardan and Nicasia wed. Jude reflects on the precarious power she has over Cardan. She goes to a council meeting with her foster father. It's an interesting way to talk about him, Maddox, and other
In
representatives.
a way, he kind of is, actually. That's probably the better response. Yeah.
And they ignore her attempts to warn them of Orla's plans. Also, I don't know if it's this point that we find it out, but we have found out at some point that Nicasia was with Cardan. They were in love. Locke came and
Hmm.
stole her away and then dumped her, I think, for Taryn. And
Yeah.
that caused like a huge rift. Now Nicasia's like, maybe I love Cardan, I don't know. And also, Locke told Cardan that the person that he was tricking Nicasia with was Jude, which
Mm.
we learn partially explained his unhinged
Yeah.
behavior toward Jude.
Yep. Hmm.
In book one, once again, not an excuse, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nick,
Nicatia was so annoying this book.
yes,
I was just like, girl, stand up. Like, what's going on? Like, calm down.
yeah, I'm like
She was
murder.
just
That's what you
so,
want. That's what you were gonna.
she was like, I wasn't trying to kill him. I was trying to kill the girl. Like, but even so, sister,
Right.
why? Like, you could have done anything else.
Yes. But the good thing about this plot is that they learned that there was a secret entryway into Cardan's room. So they're like,
Hmm.
Cardan can't sleep anywhere else. He has to sleep in Jude's room. Of all the rooms in the castle, somehow we
Yep.
made a way to figure out how to do the one bed trope.
Yes.
And she,
Mm.
her watching him sleep, you were, what are your, tell me your reaction? Because I remember this.
I was very much like, girl, I need you to be absolutely so for real. I need you to be so serious right now because you describing this man with soft lips and beautiful eyelashes and beautiful skin, you don't hate him. Stop lying. You're lying to yourself. Stop it.
Mm-hmm.
If I hated someone, I would be like, I think you're ugly and I hate your face. I hate everything about you.
I'm going to sleep
I
on your
would never describe I would never describe someone that I hate as having soft lips and beautiful eyelashes and describing how their hair curled on their forehead. Like, no one's doing that. No one is doing that.
couch. Yes, so I love that. And then there's like a scene too where he gets like super drunk and he's like, kiss me until I'm sick of it. And then he
Ah,
passes out and you're like, the feelings are still there underneath all the hurt. Like,
I love it. Love it. Love it. Chef's kiss. Perfect. Didn't they also learn that like Cardan has like magical powers, essentially? Like
yes,
his blood
his blood
can
like
like
turns to like, I don't know, flower
flowers, like
something.
white flower. Because she goes back to his room and sees like there's flowers in his bed where he was hit.
Yes. So they're like, oh, he's inherited some of like the magical powers of the royal family,
Mm-hmm.
which comes into play later. So then we have this
Mm-hmm.
party that Locke throws. And he tries to embarrass her by crowning her the Queen of Mirth and trying to glamour her, but she can't be glamored, so she has to pretend to.
Yeah.
Um, and she like dances with Cardan, which is interesting because this is another moment that like she thinks that Cardan is trying to embarrass her, but really he's trying to like keep anybody else from causing harm to her because it's all like
Yeah.
political. She's like, he's
Mm-hmm.
just dancing with me right now because he wants to see how miserable I am. And I'm like, dude, shut up.
Just
Like,
stop.
stop saying these words. And then the undersea is like, hey. And they show
Hey guys.
and they're like,
Sorry we're late.
right. They're like, we will kill all of you if you don't marry Cardan to Nicasia. And Cardan's like, what? What? Um,
Right.
so that's interesting. And then like I'm like looking at there's stuff going on with Belkin. They're trying to trick Belkin. I really don't care about Belkin, so I don't
Right.
also
Right. Because Bilkin's basically just like, yeah. 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 Yeah, a bunch of stuff does happen that I don't really care about. Oh, Carden's mom is in this one, isn't she?
yes, they find her in the
Yeah.
prison.
She's in the
I
prison.
don't remember at what point. And we find out like she's I think Jude had seen in like some orb.
I think the roach tells her.
Hmm.
I think the roach is like, yeah, they put her in prison instead of Carden because of what happened when they were kids with Dane.
Right. Yeah.
He was, yeah, that's the reason why she was there. It's like, because Carden was framed for murdering someone, but he didn't actually kill them. So instead of putting him in prison, they put his mom in prison. And I was like, weird system, but okay.
Right. And Cardan
Um,
really doesn't really care for her because he's now the High King and has not exonerated her. So it's
yeah.
Now this is a very interesting wording. The council plans to use Jude's younger brother Oak as bait to lure out the undersea. Afterwards, Jude meets Cardan and they discuss political strategy before making love.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Because like she goes to like this he takes her to this like private room that's in like the palace room that no one
Mhm.
really knows about. And then like they're like in the dark, but they're like mad close to each other. And they're basically like trying to strategize, but then like they kiss each other. Oh no, because he's like, I'm gonna seduce Nikesha, essentially.
Yes.
And she's like, okay. And he's like, do you want me to show you how? And I was like, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. And, you know, of course, she does not, you know, she doesn't say no. So he does what he needs to do. And it's like a great scene because I was telling you, like, this is like a movie where like the two enemies that hate each other finally like hook up and they're like kicking their clothes off and they're like, I hate you so much. I hate you so much. But
He
like, you're
literally
still,
is like, I want you to tell me that you hate me because
yeah.
he knows that it's not true. And there's something about
Mm-hmm.
that that's just so good. And I also, part of the reason I like this book series, we were talking about this too, is it's not like explicit. There's a lot that you just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand what happened,
You
but it's
can figure out,
not
it's not
like,
hard to figure out what happened.
you're not like,
You're
I mean,
not like, I'm glad that I don't know what Cardan's genitalia looks like. You
right.
know, I'm very glad I don't need to know that.
I do not want to know. That's not why I'm reading this book. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Holly Black. You did great writing. I could understand exactly what was going on without
Right.
having you to tell me step by step.
Right.
So it was great. It was a great little moment. I do remember being like, woo, I need a minute after that one. And then the next day she's like, can't even look at him in his face. Like she's like avoiding him. Like she's like, I can't see him.
Right.
And it's great.
Which is like, I don't know, it's funny. It's funny to me. There's like, it's funny when you're like in love with somebody because at this point, I really think she is. She just doesn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And you are like, you could be in a room full of people and you see that person, and it's just like everything else just all of a sudden goes like quiet. And it's just like
Mm-hmm.
that person, which I think is what she's experiencing, but is not able to
Yeah.
admit to herself because she still thinks they're like enemies. I'm like, I don't know what, nothing about what just happened was giving enemy. I need you to calm down.
Yeah.
So,
None of that was giving enemy.
no.
Not at all.
So now we get to Locke and Taryn's wedding. And Vivi is with Oak, I think, in the real world. And then she brings Heather, her girlfriend, to this wedding, but
Mm-hmm.
has not told
Because I don't think we mentioned that part
what part.
where she had had Vivi be part of the plot where she was going to take Oak to the human world at the end of
Yeah.
book one.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
he's been in the human world this whole time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he's been living there with her, with Vivi and Heather, but Heather does not know anything about
Not
magic.
at all.
And Vivi is like, the best time for me to tell her is just to bring her to Elfheim and she will just see everything and it'll be great, which is a horrible plan.
Right. Because Jude goes to the human world because she comes with them.
Yeah.
And Heather's like, oh, are we going to have room in your car? And she's like, what are you talking? She's literally
Yeah.
like, Vivi didn't tell her that we don't use
We're
cars.
gonna ride magical horses and
Like, okay.
and
And she's
she
like, I hope there's enough space. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, Vivi, you didn't tell her? What is going on?
right. Once again, avoidance. Like her and
Yes.
both I'm like
Big
the
avoidance.
worst. So anyway, so they get to Elfheim. Heather is traumatized. We'll get back to her in a second. And important, Jude goes to get a present for Taryn and gets almost murdered on the way home. She ends up like
Yep.
killing some people on a horse, but the person who shot her rides away. This is another point where she is hiding her injury. This time, I actually don't really understand why she hid her injury. Maybe it's because she didn't know who. Because Nikasia had told her like,
That's true.
you.
Right. She said someone you know has already betrayed you. And she
Yeah,
was just kind of like, I don't trust anyone.
right. So she has Vivi help her.
Sew her up.
So,
Yeah.
I hate that scene. It's disgusting. Sew herself up. Um, and then she goes to the wedding, still
Mm-hmm.
hurt. And at this wedding,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I just realized there's a key part of this plot twist because she goes to get a gift from that
Crimson.
Grimson, yeah,
Mhm.
that guy, and he gives her these earrings to give to Taryn, sun and a moon. They're individual earrings, a sun and a moon. And he's like, they're gonna make hers look so pretty, da 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 da. And she's like, cool. And then she gets attacked and she loses the
Mm-hmm.
satchel and stuff with the gift and stuff in it. And so then the wedding continue.
She sees the earrings on Taryn, who is like, Locke gave
Hmm.
them to me. And once again, you're like, Locke is on sight if I
Yes.
ever see you.
Yeah.
But Jude is like, what is there for me to do? Then people try to kill each other all the time in Elfhame. So
Hmm.
I'm just whatever.
She's like, it's my sister's wedding. I can't.
Mm-hmm. And then she gets kidnapped. She gets betrayed by the ghost and gets kidnapped by the Undersea. This is the part of the book that I hate having to read every time I read it.
Yes. Yes. But we find out Locke only tried to kill her because she tried to kill him before that. I forgot to mention that part.
Does she?
Yes.
Sure.
She goes to his house and she like basically pulls out a sword on him and is like, if you do anything to harm my
Right.
sister, I will kill you.
Right.
And he was like, cool.
I feel like I've just force ejected everything that has to do with Locke. I don't care. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So then turns out because she goes to the prison again and Bilkin's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then because the ghost is like, we need you at the prison. She goes there and just like Bilkin's gone, what the heck happened? And the ghost is like, sorry, shorty. And then he like knocks her out. And I was like, what?
yeah. So then she wakes up, she's under the sea. Somehow they like enchant her that she can breathe, but Nicasia like tortures her and like turns it on and off. So she's like
Yeah.
drowning, which is
Hmm. Hmm.
awful. And then
Yeah.
they bring her to dinner with Queen Orla, Nicasia,
Hmm.
and Balkan. Three of the best characters, love so much, all
Hmm.
there at once. And they try to glamour her. But this was the thing that I was like, okay, I can tolerate this plot because they don't know that she can't be glamored. Um, so she has
Right.
to just like play along. And some very interesting things happen in this. One is Nicasia's priority of knowing whether or not Cardan
Oh my God. She's like, are you in love with him? And she's like, what?
Bilkins is that important? Like I don't
Yeah. Bilkin's like, what? Like, who cares? She's like, no, I need to know. I'm like, why? Like,
right. Everyone's like, okay, Nicasia, shh. Like, please, the adults are speaking. Um, and then Balkan is like, kiss me like you kissed Cardan, and blah blah blah, which is just like, ew. And then after
yeah.
that, he's like, when you get back to Elfhame, kill Cardan. That's what you're gonna do. That's our master plan. You are going to kill him. You're not gonna let
That's
him
such a
know.
lame plan. I was like, you're so lame.
It reminds me of Ella Enchanted. You know that scene where she looks in the mirror? What does she say? She's like, "You will no longer be obedient."
Yes, yes.
You know what someone said recently? They said it was because she had commanded herself and not because I always thought it was just like her willpower that
Hmm.
made her like not kill him. But someone was like, it's because she commanded herself to no longer be obedient because she looked at herself in the mirror. And I
Oh
was like,
my gosh. She could have done that this whole time.
exactly. Exactly.
Dang, I thought it was like she realized, she had the power the whole time, you
That's
know
what
what
I
I
thought.
mean? Like it was like she just kind of overcame the power because, she loved the prince.
I think it's partially
Wow.
that too, because you see her like fighting with the sword.
Literally fighting it. Yeah.
Love, but
Love it.
similar vibes actually. I feel like to this
Mm-hmm.
a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. Um,
Yeah.
so all right, they return her to the surface, thinking that
Dude.
their plan is in motion. When she attempts to see Cardan, she finds that Maddox has ordered his guards to keep her away, and so she goes to Balkan for help because they're keeping her out of the palace.
Yeah.
He tells her he's going to arrange her entrance to an upcoming ball and gives her a vial of poison. But then she sneaks
Mm-hmm.
into Cardan's room and tells him, like, this is what's going on. They thought that I was under a glamour, blah, blah, blah. They're planning on killing you. I'm not going to kill
Yeah.
you. Just
Mm-hmm.
FYI. At the ball, Jude confronts Locke again. Cardan arrives inebriated, but Jude realizes he's been poisoned. Balekin draws attention in
Yes.
hopes of framing her with the vial of poison in her pocket, but she's not glamored, so she doesn't. And he is not
Yeah.
happy about this.
Not at all.
Not. Jude pulls Cardan away, and Balekin sends a message asking for the crown in exchange for the antidote because he's poisoned. Um,
Right.
and then Jude meets him and gets the antidote before killing him in a duel.
Woo!
This is another point where I was like, she's not going to kill him.
I didn't realize that that was gonna happen.
No.
I thought like, because Bilkin was like pissed that he wasn't actually controlling her, and so he's like, "I'm just gonna fight you. It's fine. We're gonna fight, and it's gonna be fine." When he was like going towards her, I thought she was gonna, do her usual Jude thing, fight him with the sword, and then she said, "Yeah, I hit him in the artery," and I said, "Wait." I was like,
Him saying, like, wasn't he
and
saying,
he basically was like, no, 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 I'm just kidding. Basically, he was just kind of like, no, 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 like, never mind. And she was like, oop, too late. I was like,
yeah.
literally in the middle of being like, JK.
So, an interesting thing. So, The Stolen Heir is about Oak, as you know, and
Mm-hmm.
he's older. He's 18, and there's like a scene where he like picks a fight, and they think that he doesn't know how to fight because he's like this little scraggly prince,
Mm-hmm.
but he is like deadly lethal. And he was like, I don't like getting into the reason I don't get into fights is because I was only taught to fight to kill. I was not taught to
Mm-hmm.
fight to wound. If I fight you, you will die, and you don't want.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting,
Period, baby Oak.
right? Dude obviously was raised by the same person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she unalives Bilkin, and you're like, once again, where is the plot going?
What is about to happen?
Who was the
Yeah.
villain of the next book? And then she goes back. She's gonna go tell Cardan, like, I just killed your brother. He is so
Mm-hmm.
happy because he's like, I did what you asked. And she's like, I wasn't in here. I was literally out there fighting your brother.
Right.
And he's like, well, no, you asked me for a favor to release Matic. And then she's like, that was freaking Taryn. So disappointing.
It's just like she just doesn't. I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Like, why do you keep doing this to her? This
Right.
is just like, do you actually hate your sister? Like, just say that.
Yeah, her loyalty to Matic is like infuriating. I understand that she's afraid, but it's also like, what is wrong with you? Like, he would dispose of you the second he got the chance if it was of benefit to him.
Yes.
So, and then,
We see that very quickly.
yes, Cardan is like, I have a great idea. You could release me from me being obligated to you if we just get married. Then you'll have the same power because you'll be the high queen. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
what is the catch? And he's like, there's no catch because they don't need witnesses because their word is binding. So they
Right.
have this cute little ceremony where they get married. And this is once again a point where if you would just want happiness, just close the book and just put it away.
Yep. Just like that TikTok trend. This is where the movie ends. Close the computer.
Literally.
Move on with your life. Yeah.
But then Oracle comes and she's like, Balkan has been killed. And Cardan is like, what? What? Because he was so like excited about what happened with Tara, and then he was so excited
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't let Jude talk. She had come in there to her defense to say it, but then she was like, maybe now is not the best time to tell him I just killed his brother after we just got married.
Right.
He wasn't
Right.
pleased about this. And then Cardan all of a sudden is like Percy Jackson in the Percy Jackson, like, you know what? I think I am the son of Poseidon. And like there's like islands coming up and like all
Well, we're forgetting that, like, Orlog and all of them are there, and
yes.
they're basically just like, well, like, you need to align with us because it's gonna get ugly. And he's like, oh yeah. And like you said, hit avatar state, yip yip, starts water bending and earth
Yes.
bending, and you're like,
You're like
hey.
all of a sudden you're like, this could end really well. Cardan is more
Mm-hmm.
powerful, because up until this point, the one who's making all of the moves is Jude, because
Yeah.
she's the one with brains. But then quickly they're like, it turns because they're like, well, there needs to be like justice, I guess, for Balkan's murder, which is dumb to me that they would even demand that because Balkan is Cardan's brother. So I'm like, this has nothing to do with you.
No.
And Cardan is like, I have a resolution. I will just banish Jude I will banish her. And she can only be pardoned by the crown. And then she's like, but I'm your wife. I'm the high
It's not
queen.
even banished. He says exile, which
Yeah.
I feel like is much more piercing. I
Yeah.
was like, excuse me? You're going to do what?
No, to make matters worse, she's like, I'm the High Queen. We're married. Tell them. And he says nothing.
And everyone laughs at her. And
Yeah.
I was like,
The end.
hence my screenshot. Yeah. And then I closed the book and I was like, I just dead, like we were on FaceTime and I was just dead quiet. I was like, what was that? Like I didn't even have words. I had no words. I was like, so you did all of that just for it to end that way? I was like, okay.
Because it was like you said this, and this is how I felt reading it too. Like, how are we gonna redeem him from this? This is very
Yeah.
like this is not that was not a good move.
No. I was like, nothing. I was just like, where do we go from here? I was like, because I remember I kept trying to think of like, I remember I kept being like, okay, the Queen of Nothing, is it going to be like this or is it going to be this? Because I was like, why is it even called the Queen of Nothing? I was like, is she going to have to marry Belkin or something? Like, is she going to, they're going to trick her into marrying somebody? Like, what, like Queen of Nothing? Like, what does that even mean?
She's literally the queen of nothing. That's she's the
And
queen.
then the ending of the second book happened. And I was like, got it.
Right.
Okay.
Infuriating for sure. I cannot imagine reading that book right when it came out and then having to wait a year for the Queen of Nothing. I would have been mad. I would have been so furious. I would have been pissed. So then we move on to, well, do you have anything else to say about the Wicked King before we move on to?
No, because I was very much upset by that ending. And I was like, I need to start this third one now.
Hmm. So, the Queen of Nothing. He will be the destruction of the crown and the ruination of the throne. Power is much easier to acquire than it is to hold on to. Jude learned this lesson when she released her control over the wicked King Cardan in exchange for immeasurable power. Now, as the exiled mortal queen of Fairy, Jude is powerless and left reeling from Cardan's betrayal. She bides her time, determined to reclaim everything he took from her. Opportunity arrives in the form of her deceptive twin sister Taryn, whose mortal life is in peril. Jude must risk venturing back into the treacherous fairy court and confront her lingering feelings for Cardan if she wishes to save her sister. But Elfhame is not as she left it. War is brewing. As Jude slips deep within enemy lines, she becomes ensnared in the conflict's bloody politics. And when a dormant yet powerful curse is unleashed, panic spreads throughout the land, forcing her to choose between her ambition and her humanity.
Let's get into it.
Let's
Let's get into it.
right. So she is in the mortal world, and she's like a
Mhm.
hitman for this like little
Yeah. She's
area.
like a bounty hunter, essentially. Like, yeah.
So the book starts with her like going to fight some cannibal. He tells her to like, I don't know if it was fight her or subdue her or something. They fight. She wins and
Yeah.
leaves this soldier alone. Her name's Grima Mog. She comes back
Hmm.
later, so she's important. And she tells Jude that Maddox is planning to attack Cardan. And Jude's like, conflict, because I hate Maddox, but also I kind of hate Cardan right now. But also I kind of love
Hmm.
Cardan. And also I kind of love Maddox. So I'm kind of confused about how I feel
Yes.
about all of this. And then this is one of the best scenes in the whole series for me. She comes back from this fight, and there is an extra like cup or something, and
Hmm.
he thinks it's Heather because Heather and Vivi have broken up because Vivi traumatized Heather.
Yeah. Heather was like, I gotta go.
Yeah,
Gotta go my own way. Can't do it
but
no
it's not.
more.
It's Taryn, and Taryn's like, so I need your help. I killed Locke. And they are now interrogating people to find out who did it, and they're going to glamour me. And if you do it, you won't be lying when you say that you didn't kill Locke. And Judah's like, what? Like,
First of all, first of all, you're just gonna show up just and think that we're gonna be nice to each other?
right.
Like, she's like, girl, and why should I help you? And Taryn's like, I'm pregnant. And I was
Yeah.
like, huh? Huh? What?
Right.
You're what? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Repeat that. I didn't quite hear you.
And it's like the way that it happens is so like I don't know. She just gets tired of him. She was basically like, yeah, he's sleeping with a bunch of other people. That never really bothered me. It's the fact that he would be gone for weeks at a time. And then she said that one day he was just like, I don't know, lecturing her or something, and she just grabbed a pen and stabbed him. Like, oh my God. I
It
see
literally just
that.
snapped.
Yeah. So I'm like,
And I kind of get it,
I do.
maybe I get it. I would probably maybe do the same. I don't know, but I could see myself snapping if I was like had reached my breaking point.
For sure. The Duarte sisters at this point have taken out half of the friend group.
Yes, you're right.
Chaotic. So yeah, and honestly, like I don't know if this is super petty of me, but when I read that, I was like good riddance. I can't deal with.
Listen, I was like, you know what? I said I wanted Locke to die, and I was very glad about it. I was like, oh, he died for real. Well, praise be.
Yeah. Well, I was yeah. I think it's funny too because someone mentioned on the internet they were like, yeah, Valerian and Locke basically get like no flowers. Like Valerian is almost not mentioned at all in book two, and not at all in book three.
Yeah.
Locke, you
Mm-mm.
start off book three with Locke being dead, and then he gets mentioned like a couple times, but like not really any consequence for the two murders, which is kind of amusing. Because that would never
Yeah.
happen. I'm not saying murder people, obviously. I think murder,
Right, right.
but it's interesting in this context because it's like it's
Like
just
there's no one basically trying to avenge or like figure out what actually happened.
yeah. So then Jude is like, okay, fine, I will go. And she goes into the court. Cardan is king. And they're like, she's like, I did not kill Locke. And I think someone asks, like, oh, what if she has weapons on her or something? And he's like, oh, I'll just go investigate her
Mm-hmm.
in private. And
And I was like,
she's like, that's not good because I have a bunch of scars and he
mm-hmm.
has seen all of them. So he will know that it is me. And she's like, how am I going to kill him? Like, how am I going to subdue him?
Yeah, and my other thing was like, I was like, wait, did he and Taryn like have a thing or something? Because like the way that he said it was like, I'll just take her alone. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, because she's supposed to be Taryn. So I was like, what? And then she goes to the room
Mm-hmm.
and she's like still putting on her Taryn act, and he's like, girl, I know it's you. And she's like, what? He's like,
No, he's
yeah.
what he says. He's like, so did you get my letters? And she's like, what?
Yes, yeah.
Dude, nobody's here. Like, I know it's you. And that made my heart drop. And it was like such a good redemption from the scene in the
Mm-hmm.
last book where he was like, he got tricked by Taryn. So he's like, I'm never
Yeah.
gonna get tricked ever.
He's like, never gonna trick me again.
And then we're all confused because he's talking to Jude like everything is cool. And he's like,
Yes.
my letters. I'm like, what in the notebook is going on? Like,
He's like, I wrote you every day. And she's like, okay.
yeah.
Like, I still don't know what you're talking about.
He's like, yeah, exactly. And then he notices the knife in her hand. And there's the scene where he's like, why are you afraid? Like, I'm so confused. And it's just like, I don't know, something about that is very sweet.
Sure. But I'm also like, please use your brain. Please.
No,
Why do you think she would be scared of you? Why do you
neither
think
of
she would
them,
want to stab you?
neither
No,
of them
nothing. Just it's
use
just
their brain.
air in there right now.
No.
Okay.
And before they can communicate about this, Maddox attacks the palace because he thinks it's Taryn, and he's pretty sure that Taryn did it. So he doesn't want Taryn to
Yeah.
go to prison or be killed. So he kidnaps Jude slash Taryn. So they don't
Hmm.
get to resolve anything.
Yeah.
But Cardan manages to get away. So when they're in the camp, they find out that Maddox has a lot allies.
Right, because he takes her to a camp. He doesn't take her back to his house.
Yeah, and the Court of Teeth is really relevant in the Stolen Heir because the Stolen Heir is from the point of view of Surin, their daughter, who is like
Hmm.
blue and has like sharp teeth, and they have her
Yeah.
like muzzled basically. Uh,
Yeah, it's very weird.
yeah, and they're like awful. So you're like, great. I'm glad that you have such great allies.
Hmm. Hmm.
And let me see. I'm like trying to. There's like stuff in here that's like not that interesting that I don't really want to talk about. Blah blah blah. They're planning on like attacking and becoming the king.
The ultimate power. Yeah, Maddox just like, I'm gonna be king now. It's giving very much like Scar.
Yes. Oh, I remember what was happening. He had found Grimson, whatever, who is now working
Mm-hmm.
for Matic because he's trying to undo
Yeah.
the crown so that he can
Yes.
crown. Because Matic just really wants to be king. I'm like, you're right. It is giving Scar. Like, it's giving be prepared. That whole
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm about to be king now, so who cares?
and so then Jude also learns that the ghost is Maddox's prisoner and that the ghost didn't betray her. He just Maddox knew his true name, which was like,
Mm-hmm.
why do I feel like it was Leaf? I don't think that's right. It
No,
was something
I'll
different.
look it up.
Lark.
But it's definitely started with an L.
Yeah. Which is interesting because that got me thinking. I was like, what is Cardan's real name? Like, what if that's,
Well, Cardan's real name would be Cardan, I think. I think the ghost was his like alias.
I think it's your true name, not your real name. Sorry. Your true name is the one that if somebody knows, they can control you. And I think that that's different than, I don't know. I don't really get how it works. But yeah.
Larkin.
Yes.
Larkin Gorm Garrett.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Not a very cute name, but so we're kind of like, all right, I guess I don't hate you as much because you were kind of
Mm-hmm.
being glamored. And then Jude is like asleep or something, and she wakes. She finds that the roach and the bomb have come to rescue her, but not only them, Cardan has also come with her
Mm-hmm.
all the way to the camp. And she's like, "What are you doing here?" And the roach is like, "I told him multiple times this was a horrible." Did you hear that?
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, I told him multiple times that that was a horrible idea, but he just insisted on coming because I'm sure. I feel like I imagine Cardan like laying in his bed, like, why was she so scared? Do you think that maybe
Mm-hmm.
she misinterpreted my actions? Maybe there's a possibility that what I thought was clear wasn't as clear as I thought it was, and she's
Mm-hmm.
actually really upset about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then they're trying to escape, but then Maddox comes out and like almost kills Jude, basically.
Yep. Yep.
But then there's like this cute little like Avenger scene where like Grima Mog and Taryn and
Yes.
Vivi, maybe
And
not Taryn, no,
Vivi.
Taryn is there.
Yeah.
Yeah. They step out to help her, and then Maddox basically leaves her to die. Were you surprised by that? That he would like fight her to the death and like leave her to die?
No.
Okay.
This is very much his character.
Mhm.
If he, all he wants is power. He wants obedience. She wasn't giving it to him. And so he was like, well, now I have to kill you because you're of no use to me. And he was just kind of like, oh, you're not Taryn. So there was also another betrayal in there. So it's like, I think Maddox was gonna, he was gonna kill her if he, I think Maddox was very much like, if he had to kill Jude, he would have done it just to get what he wanted.
Yeah. Do you think he would have felt bad though? Like, do you think there's any part of him that felt bad about like hurting her?
I don't, I don't think so.
Mm.
Because I feel like if he did, he would at least express something.
Yeah.
Maybe not outright say that he's sorry, but maybe say something for her to be like, okay, he didn't actually want to hurt me, but he doesn't do that for the rest of the book.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. I don't know how to, it's hard for me to like relate or understand him at all because he's so like devoid of emotion. I can't understand what it would
Mm-hmm.
possibly be like to be.
Like he has his moments, like when she's supposed to be Taryn, he's like really gentle with her.
Yeah,
But like, yeah, I don't know if that's just because like that's how he was with Sharon because he knew that she was more like gentle and softer than Jude.
maybe.
Um, but yeah, like besides that,
Right.
like nothing else really comes to mind.
Right. And then at this point, the land claims Jude and heals her, which is like really cool because we don't know if she'll inherit any magic because she's mortal, and she does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then Grima Mog like bends her knee and is like, "You are the queen. Like we
Mm-hmm.
recognize you as the queen." And there's like, I think isn't this the moment where Taryn finds out that she's married to Cardan because she's like, "I'm so confused."
Yes. And she's like, why is she bending the knee? And she's like, wait, you're the what?
Yeah, and Vivi's like, "You didn't tell her? Like, why doesn't any family tell any?"
Vivi, of all people, you should understand.
Yes. So then Jude and Cardan reunite at his palace. It turns out that Cardan's decree of exile was mainly for show and contained a loophole for Jude's return. It said that Jude could only return when the crown allowed it. Since Jude herself is the crown, she could have returned at any point. Cardan sent many letters to Jude, begging her to return, but these letters were intercepted by Cardan's mother, Lady Asha, who have always been skeptical of Jude since she's immortal and tried to undermine her authority. And then there's this moment where well actually no, go ahead. Tell me your thoughts about that whole plot twist before I go into the
I
next.
just I just remember him being like, "Yeah, I thought you were smart enough to get it." And I was like, "What about what you said in the moment would make her be like, "Oh, this is a joke."
Right.
Like, this is just a little jokey joke. We're going to laugh about this later. No. Like, I was like, he's just like, "Yeah, it was a joke. It was, a little prank."
Right.
I'm like, I should punch you right now.
Right.
That's what I
100%.
should do.
No one laughed.
No one laughed. People died. Okay. People cried, were traumatized, me included. Like, how dare you? Like I said to you and Sasu, like when you sent that TikTok where Carden's basically like, I have the best idea ever. And it's like the fandom's like, that is the worst idea ever. Like, I was like, he was literally Winston from New Girl being like,
Yes.
this is going to be the ultimate prank. Everyone's going to think this is so funny. It's going to be so epic. But no, people's lives were changed in a negative way because of your actions,
No
sir.
one understood your intention. Not us,
No.
not Jude, not anybody around her, not the
Nope.
understudy. It was just you yourself. Oh God.
Mm.
It's just like it's interesting to read. Someone talked about how like Jude and Cardan are interesting to read because there are like lots of other fantasy or dystopian couples where they almost like fit perfectly into each other and they like get what the other person is saying, and it's like
Mhm.
when I need you, you're immediately there for me and all of that. Like you just understand. But Jude and Cardan never understand each other. They are always
Nope.
misunderstanding each other. They're like ships in the night. And so it's like
Mhm.
thing because they both still really want each other, but it's like now it's like, oh, I think you exiled me, and he thinks now I'm not responding because I don't want to be with him. Not that someone is intercepting. So there's so much like miscommunication going on.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
I was like,
I'm
it's
just
so
like,
what's that audio that's like it's from like Knives Out that's like it's so dumb, it's smart. And it's like, no, just dumb.
yeah, that was literally Cardan. I was like, and I remember being like, so when he was staring at her and saying that and smiling, he thought it was funny. Like he was like, this is going to be great. But she was like, this man is staring at me with the most evil eyes I've ever seen. And he's laughing and enjoying the fact that he just exiled me. And
Right.
I was like, that is so insane. That
Yes.
is so insane.
But I love it. It's so on brand. Like what I love about Cardan is the more and more time passes, the more we find out he's literally like a himbo. Like he's so like dumb,
Yeah.
simp. Like he's very powerful and he has good plans as well. But sometimes he does stuff that you're like, that was a very bad idea. I don't know why you thought that that was going to be helpful. It was
Don't
not.
know why.
You put me
Not
through
at
all this
all.
trauma just for me to find out that it was something stupid. So yeah.
Ugh.
Um. Let's see what happens next. Oh, yes. So then I think another scene is like someone, she gets told that someone is being sent to like kill one of the royals. So she, at one of the like ceremonies, she's like up in the rafters.
Yes.
And too late, she realizes that the royal that is being like attacked is her and it's the ghost again because he's still like
Mm-hmm.
under the spell. And he shoots her and she falls and crashes
Ooh, right into the table.
right into the table. And so they're
Ooh,
like,
she can't catch a break.
no, they're and then of course they're like, arrest her. Randolin, let me tell you something about he is single-handedly one of the worst characters in this entire book. He's so like he's the definition of like the really, really traditional person who's like nothing can ever change. It has to be
Yeah.
exactly the way that it's always been. We will not allow any kind of like diversity, I guess,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
into our circle, because that would like taint the pristine nature of
Yep.
it, even though it's like a no, but you're literally not the king, so you can't decide that.
You
So
have no power here.
no. So he's like, she tried to kill the king, you know, whatever, murder and
Yeah.
whatever.
Arrest her. She needs to be arrested.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, you know, that scene where in Narnia where the king is like, "Oh, we should do like we should just call off like surrender," and then he stabs
Mm-hmm.
him and he's like, "Trickery!" and so that reminds me of. And then there's this great scene where Randall's like, send her to prison, and Cardan is like, "You will not. That is the high king. That is the high queen. She is my wife." And you're like, and everyone's like,
And I'm like, period, 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 period. Pump it up, pump it up, pump it up, pump it up.
right. So we're like, period, claiming energy. And from this point on, Cardan just, that's like his whole thing. He's like, that's
His
my,
whole vibe is just husband
yes,
energy. And
yes,
I'm like, yes, keep it up, babes.
right. It's amazing. So then she like visits the Court of Teeth. Once again, I don't really care enough to get into that. Um, and we
Well,
have,
she makes a deal with them, doesn't she?
yes, you're right. We do need to get into that. I'm like, should I skip
Mm-hmm.
this? But
I'm
then
like, this is kind of key to the ending.
they make an alliance. It has something, I don't really remember exactly what it is because I'm like confusing it with what actually happens next. It
I
they have
think it has to do with the muzzle.
the yeah, it's called a bridle and it's like magical.
Oh, wait. We're skipping a big, big part
What?
because of why they need to use the muzzle. She does the deal
No,
with them after.
you're right. Let's go back.
Yes. I was like, no, 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 because they make the deal with her because a big thing happens before this.
Right. No, but it's saying that she did go to meet with them for something. I just don't remember what it was. Like I said, I didn't
Oh,
care about them, so I
yeah.
blocked it out. I know she meets with like Lord Royben too, and like Queen. And
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
that part is interesting when I'm reading it, but it's not interesting to me right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are stitching her up later in her room, and
Mm-hmm.
she is like, you know, that Cardan is in there like fawning over her as usual because once again, husband
Right.
been shot, and they're like, "Cardan, get out of here! Like you are like getting in the way. We need to stitch her
Yeah.
up." And he says, "This is my room, and that is my."
That is my wife. And I
And
was like,
then someone,
period.
the roach is like, "So you keep saying like." It's this
I
great,
love it. I love it so much.
and I think I don't know if it's later that day, but they finally like meet, and he's, or is that this scene? No, no, no. Sorry. There's like a little spicy scene that happens, and then the next day,
Basically, the marriage is consummated.
right,
So
right, and it's very
it
intense.
just gives everything that you need,
It
basically,
it
without doing too much. It's just enough.
the imagination gives. So then they're having like a ceremony the next day. They're all at the dais. Before they
Mhm.
go into that, Carden is like, "Jude, I love you. I just want you to know."
Yes.
And that's when I was like, something is gonna happen. This is only 66% of the way into the book. Something is about to happen. Too many good things
Hmm.
have just happened. I told
Yeah.
Arielle, well, when I first read the book, after the scene where they finally like got together and they were like whatever in love, I shut the book and I went to sleep because it was 1 in the morning. I said, things are too good. There is way too much book left for this to
Hmm.
continue. And when
Yep.
Ariel was reading, similarly, it was like 12:30 in the morning,
Yeah,
and
it was really late.
she
You
finished and
told me, I was like, wow, that was a great chapter. And you were like, now close the book and go to bed. And I
yeah,
was like, why? You're like, just close the book and go to bed.
I
And I
was
was
like,
like,
I think you
okay.
should go to sleep now. That would be a good move because tell us what happens next after that scene.
So so basically they have, it's like, basically it's Jude's coronation, right? Something like that.
I don't really remember exactly what it is.
It's something that has to do with crowning. Like
Yeah.
they're finally like accepting him as the queen and king of Elfame, essentially.
Hmm.
And Maddox shows up, and yes, I think Maddox shows up
Hmm.
because them and like the Court of Teeth are there or whatever. And that Grimson guy is there. And so then like Maddox comes and just starts being annoying, and he's just kind of like, nah, look at this magical sword I have because Grimson gave it to me. I'm gonna crash the whole thing. Slams the sword on the ground, splits the days open, basically.
Yeah.
And then the crown, something happens with the crown.
So
And
uh,
I,
it's
yeah,
the prophecy was something about like it was like the ruination of
of the crown
um, and
basically would be
something about the
Cardan's.
throne. So when he split the throne, because he like it like split evenly and split up the throne,
Mm-hmm.
Cardan was like, oh, maybe this is literal.
Yeah,
He snapped the crown.
that's what it was. He snaps, because I was like, it wasn't on his head. He
Mm-mm.
snaps the crown, and then and then Jude starts to describe Cardan's face starts to transform, and his eyes turn fully black. And at that point, Melina had left the room, and I read that sentence about how his eyes turned black, and I closed the book and I waited for her to come back. And she comes back on the screen, and I was like, Melina, what do you have me reading right now? What am I reading? Like, I was like, what is about to happen right now? Like, what do you mean his eyes turn fully black? What am I reading? So I continue reading, and just continues to describe how then, like, I think she says blood comes out of his eyes.
Maybe. Or it might be like black comes out of his eye.
Yeah, black something comes out of his eyes. And I'm like, this man is about to die. Like, I was like, he's about to die right now. I'm about to witness Cardan die. And I was like, if Cardan dies, I'm going to stop. I'm not finishing this book. I was like, I'm not going to finish. And then he literally turns into a snake. I just want you guys to like let that settle in really quick. This man turns into a huge black serpent with like gold scales or something. But essentially, this man becomes a creature.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, so what? How is this going to end? What is going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
The snake proceeds to start basically going crazy in there, like kills Grimson, like everyone's like freaking out, like what the hell is going on, what's happening. Yeah, and then he like forms a little like burrow in the palace room and like dives into the hole, and everyone's like, wait, what? So he's like gone, essentially. Like, we're like, Cardan's gone.
Yeah.
Who we knew as Cardan is no longer here. He is now a snake creature thing. And Judah's basically having like a full-blown like panic attack PTSD, because she's like, I don't like, she's basically like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like,
Because I think when he broke the crown, it like surprised Grimson, who had made the crown, and he said something about along the lines of like, only in blood like shall the curse be broken or something. So then everyone's like, you need to kill this.
No, it said only in blood will like a new ruler arise, or something like that. Like his spilled blood, only in his spilled
Out
blood
of
will a
his spilled
ruler,
blood or something like that.
a
Yeah.
new ruler, yeah, would arise or something.
Yeah. So then and then he dies, and then they're like, Jude, kill the snake, and she's like, I can't. Like
She like literally can't move her body. Like she's literally like frozen.
yeah, which is understandable. I was literally like, of all, I thought maybe like one of them was gonna get kidnapped or something. I did not foresee Cardan turning into a serpent. That was
I did
shocking,
not see that coming at
bewildering
all.
on so many levels.
Unsettling.
Yes. And this is when she turns to the Court of Teeth for help, because they have the
Yeah.
bridle that allows them to control people, and they use it to control Surin, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And they're like, we will give you this bridle if you will marry Oak to Surin, which is weird because they're like 11.
They're literal babies.
But also funny because like they're both the characters in the Stolen Heir. It's funny because they like mention a lot of this stuff in it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, wow, look at all the and so they're like, okay, let's do it. But then Jude realizes that they are trying to use the bridle to control her as well. Because it's something about like
Mhm.
your hair. If you
Yeah,
put
you because she
bridle.
goes to that lady that she had gone to before, or
Hmm.
who had shown up like in the beginning of like the second book or something, who
Hmm.
was like trying to get Cardan to marry her daughter, that little like witch lady, whoever she was, I can't remember her name. And so she was like, yeah, they're gonna try to control you. And she's like, what? She's
Hmm.
like, yeah, because you got to put like 3 pieces of your hair on it, and like, and then because they told her put 3 pieces of your hair on it and then command it to do whatever. And she was like, yeah, they were gonna basically brainwash you. And so she was like, bet.
Right.
And so,
She invites
yeah.
everyone and she's like, I'm gonna bridle the serpent.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody come to see. Instead of bridling the serpent, she cuts off the serpent's head. And the serpent
We
just,
missed another key little point.
oh god.
She goes to something happens with her and Maddox where she like pulls his hair. She ends up like grabbing pieces of his
Yes.
hair and she attaches it to the bridle.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think she does, she somehow has, I think, the hair from like one of the people from the Court of Teeth as well. I think the guy or something. She ties basically their hair, both of their hair,
I think she
onto it.
has Lady Nora because I think Lord Gerald. I know at the beginning of the Stolen Heir, Lord Gerald is dead. I don't remember how. Once again, I don't
Okay.
care about him, so I
Yeah. Yeah, she has someone's hair from the Court of Teeth
yeah, of
and Maddox's hair, and she ties it onto there.
course.
Yes, so you're right. And then they're in front of the serpent because at this point, Serpent Cardan is causing chaos. He's just like the earth is like dying, like
Yeah.
literally dying. And he's just going around doing whatever. And so, um, yeah, and then like they finally kind of like everyone kind of works together to like hone him into one space because they were like, we don't know where he's at. But when they finally figured out where he was, they all kind of come together to kind of like surround him in a way so he doesn't go anywhere else. And that's when she's like, hey, what's up? And she says something to him before she cuts his head off. I feel like she like said something to him.
Might have said like "I love you" or something like
Yeah,
that.
she said something like, I'll always love you or something.
Yeah.
And then cut his
Did
head
you
off. And
he was dead like when that happened?
I was like, she's gonna have to kill him. Like I was like, I didn't think he was gonna be alive. I genuinely was like, oh, she's gonna kill him. And I think that's part of why it was so hard for her to just like have to do that because she probably thought the same thing. And so then yes, and then she killed the snake. And then it was like Beauty and the Beast. Like all
Hmm.
of a sudden, the snake body starts glowing and like opens up and Cardan comes out. And I was like, what?
And then
But I was also very excited.
finally, she tells him like she loves him, and I'm like, you
Mm-hmm.
good, because that always happens in books where like only one of them says I love you, or one person you're in their perspective and they're like, I'm gonna tell this person I love them. You're like, something bad's about to happen. I just know it.
Mm-hmm.
I can sense it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. Um, and yeah, the Court of Teeth must pledge loyalty to both their daughter and Jude. She's like, you will now serve Surin, this child who you have muzzled.
Yeah.
I don't remember how Lord Gerald dies. I don't know what happens to him. If they try to betray Jude, it is Queen Surin who will punish them. Grima Mog is made general of all armies.
Yes, period.
Mother Marrow, the ghost, the roach, and the bomb are rewarded. And then there's some like flirtiness between the ghost and Taryn.
Yes. Which I was like, you know what? I like it. I don't hate it. I kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was
Jude
digging it.
spares Jude spares Maddox's life and forbids him ever to use a weapon again. She exiles him to the mortal world, where Oriana and Oak join him. And then the book ends with Cardan and Jude visiting Vivi and Taryn and Oak
Mm-hmm.
and all like having pizza in the
Yes.
mortal world. And it's like very wholesome.
Very wholesome. Very
And
cute.
thoughts
And
about
that's
like how'd
it.
you feel like when you finished it?
I felt happy. I was glad, especially after all of that.
Hmm,
All of that. It was so much.
it was.
I was glad that there was just like a good final ending. I think I would have also liked just like an ending with just the two of them like together.
Mhm.
but I did like it as well. She was surrounded by the people that, she loved the most. Taryn had very questionable tendencies throughout this whole series, but she's about to be a mom. We'll give it to her.
She came through in the end
So
when she needed to, I guess.
she did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She kind of redeemed herself, I would say. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I thought it was really good. I really liked it.
What was interesting?
Honestly, I would have read a story about the ghost in Taryn. I would have liked to know how that happened and how that turned out.
Me too. I feel like she left a lot of like dots, which I almost feel like was on purpose. Like in the Stolen Heir, there are some like conflicts that are going on that are kind of like the aftermath of, they call it like the Battle of the Serpent.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and like Madoc is still alive, and like, Lady Nora is still alive, and all of this stuff, and there's like the prisoners who were like punished, and there's just a lot of like dynamics, which I thought was
Yeah.
interesting because it's like obviously the story doesn't just end here. Now there's like a bunch of other stuff that must happen as well. So I thought that was interesting. It's like it's a happy ending, but you also feel like, okay, the story can definitely continue on past here.
Yeah.
um I agree. I would be interested in knowing like just even like a little short book about like
Mm-hmm.
the ghost and Taryn. And I will say Oak has some of his uncle's like swag a little. It's hard to like approach Cardan levels, but like
Mm-hmm.
some of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff he says and does, I'm like, period. Like
Yes. That was the other thing. Sorry, that just reminded me because you said that Oak was like 18. I was like, by the third book, they're like 18 years old.
she's
Like 18, 19.
yeah,
And I'm like, that is so young.
I know.
I was like, that is so much to experience in 3 years. Like, and then I remember being like, when Taryn was like, I'm pregnant, I was like, it's giving teen mom. I
Mhm.
was like, this is teen mom. What's
Yeah.
happening?
I just pretend that they're older than they are.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
relatable to me personally. So, but yeah, it's interesting. There's also like a scene in the Stolen Heir where like Oak braids Surin's hair because she like doesn't know what to do with it, and he's like, my sisters taught me, like they were always braiding my hair, and like, and I was like, and like fans have really like unanimously loved that scene because it's so gentle and so sweet,
Yeah.
and I was like,
It's
oh,
also just like we love a brother raised by sisters. Like brothers who had older sisters, they're just so I love it. That
yeah,
is so cute.
it was. But I will, as I said to Ariel, I wouldn't read it until the second one comes out because it ended on a cliffhanger and I was angry. And so I wouldn't say
Yeah,
cliffhanger as bad as The Wicked King. I don't think anything is could possibly ever be as bad as
probably not.
that. I'm sure Holly Black could find a way to make something as bad,
Oh,
but
I'm sure.
it was good. I think The Cruel Prince was better though. But also, if you ever get the chance to read the side book, The Lost Sisters, which is like Taryn's kind of point of view, or How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories, which is Cardan's point of view, they're both short. It's definitely interesting, and it gives you a little
Hmm.
more like context about their lives and why they chose to make the decisions they did. So yeah, I think. Do you have any other thoughts before we wrap this? It's probably what our longest podcast has ever been.
Right. um, no, I would love a spinoff of just Jude and Cardan
Yeah,
being married.
and happy.
I would like to request that for sure. Um, yeah, but besides that, it was a great experience. Very emotional roller coaster of an experience, but I would recommend it. I'd recommend it if you're into fantasy, even if you're not into fantasy. Like, I genuinely was like, wow, I actually really like this as someone who's not an avid fantasy reader. So,
Mhm. It's not as hard to get into as some other things where you're like, wait, what is that? Like there is
yeah.
a lot of fantasy, but it's very easily accessible. So,
Hmm.
well, I think that's all I've got. This has been AM and PM. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.